Solarization and the subversion of visual norms through controlled chemical chaos. What if the only way to save a photograph was to break it? It sounds contradictory, but in the darkroom, there exists a process built entirely on contradiction. A moment where control is briefly abandoned, where light interrupts itself, where an image is deliberately pushed into instability. This is solarization, a photographic technique where development is interrupted by a brief exposure to light, causing a partial reversal of tones, shadows glow, highlights darken, and the image slips into surreal ambiguity. It is not an error. It is controlled disruption. Most photography depends on predictability. Light enters, chemistry reacts, an image stabilizes into a readable truth. But solarization breaks that agreement. During development, light is suddenly introduced again. Not fully, just enough to trigger chemical reversal at tonal edges. The result is striking. Halos form around dark areas. Surfaces invert. Faces begin to shift into unfamiliar versions of themselves. The photograph stops behaving like documentation. It becomes transformation. At its core, solarization creates a paradox. Light, which normally produces order, now produces disorder. It destabilizes its own logic. It turns clarity into ambiguity. And in doing so, it breaks the viewer's expectation of photographic truth. The human mind is trained to read photographs as stable reality. A face is a face. A shadow is a shadow. An image is evidence. Solarization disrupts this certainty. Familiar subjects become slightly alien. Recognizable forms appear as if from another dimension. Identity becomes uncertain. This uncertainty is not accidental. It is the purpose of the process. By breaking visual stability, solarization forces active interpretation. And interpretation brings emotion. A solarized image is no longer just representation. It becomes perception itself. In a world driven by digital perfection, clean edges, corrected color, reduced noise, solarization feels almost rebellious. Modern imaging seeks control. Solarization embraces controlled chaos, not through software, but through chemical reaction. Silver responds unpredictably. Light intrudes at critical moments. The image is interrupted mid-formation and reshaped by that interruption. It is, in essence, deliberate sabotage. Yet within that sabotage lies a strange clarity. When an image stops pretending to be purely accurate, it begins to express something else. Emotion, tension, psychological depth, a structure closer to memory than to documentation. Because human memory is not stable. It is fragmented, uneven. Some moments glow too brightly. Others fade entirely. Solarization mirrors that instability. It transforms photography into psychological space. There is also something theatrical about the process itself. A sudden flash of light in the darkroom. An irreversible shift. A point of no return. The image crosses a threshold and becomes something new. No longer a record, but an altered state. In this way, solarization challenges a central belief of photography. That images should aim for perfect fidelity. Instead, it suggests meaning often comes from deviation. From controlled error. From systems pushed just far enough to break. The photograph becomes less about accuracy. And more about experience. Less about documentation. And more about perception. And in a world flooded with flawless digital images, this becomes especially significant. Because perfection can flatten emotion. It removes friction. It makes images easy to see, but harder to feel. Solarization restores that friction. It interrupts comfort. It demands attention. It replaces certainty with ambiguity. And in that space of uncertainty, meaning begins to form again. We stop asking whether the image is true, and start asking what it feels like. Perhaps that is the real power of chemical chaos. Not destruction, but transformation. A reminder that photography has never been entirely stable. And that sometimes, the most honest images are the ones that refuse to stay still.